decision by the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, to not ban the entire Russian team from Rio.
Anti-doping officials are fuming this morning. The IOC going against the World Anti-Doping Agency recommendations.
But the Kremlin says the decision to let Russian athletes compete at the Games is a welcome one.
The task of deciding which athletes should be cleared to compete has been passed to individual sports federations.
The IOC had an opportunity here to make a big statement, to come down hard on state-sponsored doping. The evidence against Russia is overwhelming, and instead it chose to pass the buck to the individual federations.
There is a second Russian story making rounds this week that has nothing to do with the Democratic National Committee, Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donald Trump, or anyone seeking to take over the world by manipulating the process behind the scenes. However, when it comes to doing things under the table, out of sight, and also with a good eye on how much secret money it could bring in, almost no one does it better than the International Olympic Committee. I say almost, because soccer shenanigans, thanks to FIFA, make every other band of extortionists look like amateur pikers. This one involves generational cheating by the Russians to fix the outcome of international sporting events, the top prize here being gold medals at the Olympic Games. No doubt the Russians cheated for the Winter Games in their Sochi backyard. No doubt they have become the best there is at competitive drugging for such events. But they've been bagged this time, and plenty of people thought there is no way they would be allowed to compete in Rio. Then again, plenty of folks just know the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, would shirk its duty and make a mockery of the punishment angle. Let us begin there with the man who knows all, sees all, tells some about the underpinnings and undertables of sport, the man who invented the concept of covering sports from a business side, the sports professore. Rick Horrow joins us once again. All right, boss, let's go ahead and get to work. Go ahead, get out whatever you, right at the top here. Go ahead, whatever quick one-liner you got, go.
I'll do it really quickly. Your comments, your intros are so incendiary, but they're laced with intelligence. Every once in a while, there's a pretty good word in there that it's awful hard to dig somebody out of a hole on that. So let's go.
Okay,
go
good.
Sorry.
Incendiary, you got it. Because the IOC did not ban the Russians from the Rio Olympics. Right. I have said, you and I may have said this before in private conversations, and I've said this before to many people. I think this is despicable. I think it's cowardly. I think the IOC, they are the ones that have the oversight of the Olympic Games. And by not telling the Russians once and for all, you got caught, we know it, you're cheats, you can't go. They basically, and this comes down to Thomas Bach, the president of the IOC, who really had a chance to set a different line of moving forward here for the Olympic Games, and he completely blew it, Rick.
Well, this is a shameful promo. But I spent about an hour and a half with Thomas Bach personally in a one-on-one interview last summer in Toronto, getting ready for Rio. Transparency. Obviously, he's preaching transparency. He talks about how FIFA was terrible and he's not. And so we'll show that interview on NBC, by the way, in the next couple of weeks, which is an interesting thought. But the bottom line of all of this is that his argument, I would think, he didn't articulate this, is that all of the Russian federations were not guilty across the board. And so allow each of the NGBs, the national governing bodies, to police themselves. And by the way, I'm not sure that's the right answer, but the Russians admitted culpability, which is a step in the right direction. And track and field, done. Swimming today, done. My sense is by the time the games start, there'll be a lot of federations who have banned the Russian teams individually and effectively given more power to the federation. So if that doesn't happen, I'll come back and eat my words, but let's just hope so.
See, there's the point. Don't give the power to the federations themselves. This is the International Olympic Committee. They are in charge of the Olympics, and I get it. And let me just say right up front here, Rick, I feel sorry for the athletes, not only in Russia, but other places who have done it legally, who just worked their entire lives and want to get there. But don't you need to, sooner or later, just drop the hammer, set the line, punish everybody, say you're out, because maybe that will stop the next country from doing it down the line instead of leaving open all these caveats?
Yes. Punish? Yes. Everybody? Not so sure. There's a significant deterrent here if the Russian swimmers and the Russian track and field, the entire track team, and other sports by next week are not allowed to compete. And so there may be some federations within the Russian orbit that actually did it the right way, and that's who he may be trying to protect. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for a little while, only because I spent a good hour with him, and I believe in what he's trying to do. And I really think at the end of the day, if this doesn't work, then he will put the hammer down and still has the legal ability to do so, by the way.
What about those who just say that, frankly, here, Bach, the IOC, everybody else, they're afraid of Vladimir Putin? They simply got politically pressured into doing this. They don't want to cross this guy because, let's face it, Russia, huge amount of athletes, a lot of money. Future Olympic Games are in there, and withholding these teams can hurt the Olympic movement. So didn't they just get a little politically scared here?
Well, there are two different issues. Is it afraid of Vladimir Putin, or is it afraid of the economics of television without...
See, I think they go together. I think they go together.
Well, maybe, but the point is, this German head of the IOC has passed every test that I had in a one-on-one meeting. And I'm not vouching for all his credibility, but all I'm suggesting to you is if he is worried about long-term scandal ruining the games, then put the hammer down now in some context and make sure that you say the right thing. Juries is still out. They could have clearly said to the IOC ban them altogether. Russia would have then said, we don't acknowledge it. We're going to go to the World Court. It would have been a disputed Olympics. I'm not saying they would have won or not, but this is a very clear way to at least have track and field and now swimming not come as part of the Russian delegation.
One of these days we'll talk about which one would be more difficult to clean up, the IOC or FIFA. That will take weeks of conversation. All right, let's move to drugging of a different kind here. First of all, let's look at what the positive side is here. Mike Piazza, holding the record for home runs by a Major League Baseball catcher, on Sunday accepted his induction into the Hall of Fame with this story.
Tommy one day consoled me when I was really struggling to catch his knuckleball and throw out runners by saying, "Mike, I don't give a crap if you ever throw anybody out. Just go out and hit me a 3-run home run."
Which he did. He hit a number of them. Look, watching he and Ken Griffey yesterday be inducted, was sweet music for me because I love the game of baseball. Watch these guys from their early careers. Griffey was such an amazing player. But from Piazza's side, this is a guy who still has the specter of PEDs in his past. He claims that he took over-the-counter legal PEDs or supplements, if you will, before they were masked, before they were turned down by Major League Baseball, and then he stopped. He stopped when it showed up in Barry Bonds' locker. Okay, so he took them when baseball wasn't coming after him, when they were legal, but he still took them at some sense. Does this, in your opinion, the induction of Mike Piazza, open the door a further crack for Barry Bonds, Rafi Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and the others?
I think it opens the door very wide for a clear statement from people in power to define what the writers' jobs are. So Rob Manfred punts, and he should until he gets a little more on the ground and says it's up to the writers to deal with all of this, and he's not going to make anybody de facto eligible or ineligible except for Pete Rose, different issue. And so, where do you draw the line? Is it knowingly when it was prohibited? Well, that's not Piazza. That is other players. Is it convicted and not just knowingly? Is it in the Mitchell report? Well, the Mitchell report named a lot of names, but didn't take anybody specifically to justice, and there were certain players who are still speculated to have done it. I'm not sure I want that to be the standard in the next 5 or 10 years. So I would come down on a very clear standard. When it was illegal and when they had a chance to do it voluntarily or not, did they know? And if they knew, then not. And remember, that's not Piazza's story, and that's not a lot of other players' story.
30 seconds. If they put players like this in the Hall of Fame, I've always said that their plaque should say, did not get into the Hall of Fame, took so long to get here simply because they took drugs. They took PEDs. It should be put on the plaques. But again, aren't we down to that proof? And that's always the difficult thing here.
Yeah, proof is always a difficult thing. So I don't want to put something on a plaque if it's not proven. I would rather have a guy in the Hall of Fame, even with an asterisk, by the way, that says there is some speculation. I don't like that, but it's better than leaving these guys in limbo unless something is proven.
You do then think that Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire will get in one day?
Yes.
How long will it take, though? Because they're almost out of chances.
Yeah, a couple more years.
Couple more years.
Yeah. Couple more years. Which one of those do you want? Couple more years.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put you down here. I don't know if they're going to make it, quite frankly, but we will say that we will put you in our Hall of Fame, simply because we're just starting it and we have a lot of empty chairs.
If it happens, the B-list Hall of Fame, if it happens, this will be the first drink and dinner you've ever bought me, so suck it up.
That's a lie, and you know it. Thanks, Rick Horrow. Have a great time. Rock on, true believers. Never believe anything Rick Horrow tells you. We'll see you tomorrow right back here.